what is control? How do you control? All of that philosophy, I'm not going to get into. There are multiple answers to that question, and I'm not here to answer all of them. But when we think about having a sense of control, um, we think one of the ways we look at it is knowing what's happening. For example, we know that we live in the solar system and we're on planet Earth, and we live in the northern or southern hemisphere, and we live in a specific country on a specific continent. This doesn't mean that we control the planet, but we have the knowledge that Earth revolves around the sun in the Milky Way galaxy. And having that knowledge makes us feel less out of control. We know what's going on. When I talk about knowledge from this point onwards in the video, there is no good or bad value connotation to it. When I say knowledge, I just mean having information, right? That can be right or wrong, whatever. So, knowing about things can help you feel in control. That's good to know. How is that knowledge expressed? That knowledge is always expressed in the form of a story. Think about textbooks, history books, politician speeches when they're bringing people together against a common enemy or bringing people together for a common force. It always has somewhat of a story in it. This is what our nation used to be, and that's what we must return to, or this is what our nation used to be, and that's what we need to move away from. That's a story. And the same with on a more um, personal level, I guess. You share a negative self belief that you have about yourself. Often, what can happen is someone will say, okay, how can you think about that in another way? Which is basically working on the knowledge that you have about yourself and adapting that for a different time. Which is a very complicated way of saying just changing your perspective on something, right? And these stories, these pots of knowledge, inform how we interact with the world on a day to day basis. Someone who has a prejudice against a community, if they see someone who belongs to that community on the road, the way they respond to them is fully informed by their knowledge of them. The same example could be taken if someone has positive self beliefs. Every time they enter a new social interaction, they're going to be more accepting, more welcoming than someone who has a lot of negative self beliefs and already assume that the new person does not like them. Hopefully that made sense. What I'm trying to say is that if knowledge is a way of fostering a sense of control and knowledge is expressed through stories, is it possible that we can foster a sense of agency, a sense of control by creating stories? That brings me to imagination. I talk a little bit about in every video about how, for me, imagination is something you do, not something you have. It's not a character, it's not a value, it's not a trait. It's very much an action. And what is imagination? Imagination is looking at something and thinking of it in a different way. And the one question that will change your life is the question, what if? So, what I propose is this: to take 2 minutes out of your day. You don't need anything for this. You don't need your phone, you don't need pen and paper, you don't need to be sitting a certain way or standing. You could literally be doing anything, and you don't need anything for this. And all you do is you take 2 minutes out of your day, you look at something, you notice something, and you ask yourself the question, what if? This might sound a little bit silly and maybe not that important, but hear me out. Hear me out. When we imagine something, or if we imagine someone, when we're imagining what their life looks like, what their life could be like, we're trying to build empathy, build a connection, and we're looking at the world in a different way. Sometimes you might ask yourself that question and you think about it for 2 minutes and you're like, whatever, I'm gonna let it go. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But the fact is that you took 2 minutes out of your day to create a new pot of knowledge, um, to create new information that you did by yourself without anything, just you interacting with the world and creating something. And if you do that for 2 minutes every day, um, you're gonna feel a difference. I promise. I believe that it'll make more of a difference than you think it will. It can just make your brain work in a way that it doesn't get a lot of opportunities to do. And some of the greatest stories, some of the greatest inventions, the greatest ideas come from that question, what if? What if there could be telephones, but they weren't um, connected by a cord, like they were wireless telephones? Any great discovery, any great invention, any great story, at some point, that's that is just what it was. At some point, when that writer or that scientist was thinking about it, they went up to their friend and went, you know, what if? So it's a very important question. And sometimes you might get nothing out of it. You might not think about it for long, but sometimes it might lead to bigger things, and that's okay. Imagination is not this like finite resource that you need to think about in case you drain it. It's just something you do every day. And you don't have to be a specific kind of person to do it. So, yeah, go outside, find a tree, and ask yourself, what if? And I will be in this corner of the internet, asking myself, what if?